1971 wasn't just another year for music. It was the year rock found its soul, its ambition, and its breaking point. The world had changed, Woodstock was over, the Beatles were gone, and the Vietnam War had left a generation disillusioned but still dreaming. Yet out of that chaos came something extraordinary. Musicians pushed tape machines, instruments, and ideas further than ever before. Every week, another masterpiece dropped albums that didn't just top charts, but reshaped culture. From the bluesy grit of Led Zeppelin and the cinematic weirdness of Bowie, to the spiritual rebirth of George Harrison and the ferocity of Black Sabbath. 1971 became the year when rock stopped following trends and started defining them. So today, we're counting down 12 songs from 1971 that changed everything. Songs that defined generations, influenced countless artists, and still echo through every guitar riff and vinyl crackle today. Because 1971 wasn't just a year in music, it was the sound of music growing up. Number 12, George Harrison, What is Life? The Beatles were gone, and for George Harrison, that meant freedom and pressure. For years, he'd been the quiet one, standing in the shadows of Lennon and McCartney. But in 1971, with All Things Must Pass, George finally stepped into his own light, and What is Life was that light made sound. The song bursts open with one of the most joyful guitar riffs of the decade. Bright, melodic, confident. It's not a love song in the usual sense. It's a spiritual cry disguised as a pop anthem. Harrison's voice soars above Phil Spector's wall of sound production, mixing gospel horns, layered harmonies, and rock energy into something both uplifting and searching. What is Life captures the essence of 1971, the of the 60 seconds faded. The world was heavier, more complicated, but George offered hope through melody. His lyrics weren't about rebellion or fame, but faith, love, and connection ideas that cut deeper than any guitar solo ever could. When it hit the charts, listeners didn't just hear another ex-Beatles single. They heard George Harrison answering the question every artist of that year was asking in their own way. Now that we've changed the world, what's left for us? With What is Life, George didn't just find his voice. He helped redefine what rock could say. Number 11, Carole King, It's Too Late.
One of us is changing, or maybe we just stopped trying.
In a year dominated by electric guitars and larger-than-life rock icons, Carole King did something revolutionary. She sat at a piano and spoke softly, and the world listened. Her 1971 masterpiece, Tapestry, became one of the defining albums of the decade. And It's Too Late was its beating heart a song that said goodbye without bitterness, love without illusion. King wasn't just a singer, she was a storyteller who'd already written dozens of hits for others throughout the 60 seconds. But when she turned inward, her words hit harder than ever. It's Too Late opens with that warm, descending piano line. Simple, human, familiar, and from the first lyric, you feel her truth. Stayed in bed all morning just to pass the time. It's not a breakup anthem. It's adulthood in melody form. There's no screaming, no pleading, no drama, just quiet acceptance. That was the magic of Carole King. She understood that maturity could be just as powerful as rebellion. In 1971, when so many artists were chasing new sounds, she found something more timeless: emotional honesty. The musicians surrounding her, guitarist Danny Korchmar, bassist Charles Larkey, and saxophonist Curtis Amy, created a warmth that made the heartbreak glow instead of shatter. It was soft rock, but not weak. It was strength through grace. It's Too Late topped the charts for weeks, earning her Grammy Awards and redefining what a female artist could represent in rock and pop. She didn't need distortion pedals or flashing lights, just truth, melody, and courage. By the time the song faded, listeners realized something profound. In a year of revolutions and riffs, Carole King's quiet piano might have been the loudest thing of all. Number 10, the Allman Brothers Band, Whipping Post.
Nazis was one of my good time buddies, drinking in some cross-town bar.
By 1971, the live album wasn't new, but no one had ever heard one like this. The Allman Brothers Band didn't just perform, they transcended. On At Fillmore East, recorded just months before Duane Allman's tragic death, their 11-minute version of Whipping Post turned Southern blues into something nearly spiritual. It starts slow, that 11/8 bass line pulsing like a heartbeat, the audience barely breathing. Then, Greg Allman's voice breaks through, raw and pleading. I've been tied to the whipping post. It's pain and pride, defiance and exhaustion, all tangled together. The band doesn't just play the song, they live it, stretching its structure until it feels like a sermon and a storm all at once. Duane Allman and Dickie Betts weave guitars like twin lightning bolts, trading leads and answering each other with notes that feel carved out of heartbreak. It's not just virtuosity, it's conversation, one of the greatest ever caught on tape. The song swells, collapses, rebuilds, and erupts again, never losing its sense of danger. The Fillmore audience knew they were witnessing something rare, a band not chasing perfection, but truth. You can hear it in the crowd's silence between solos. That hush of people realizing they're hearing something that will never happen quite the same way again. When At Fillmore East was released in 1971, critics didn't know what to call it. Blues, rock, jazz, jam? It was all of them. It redefined what a live rock record could be. Unpredictable, alive, and human. And when the song finally ends in chaos and applause, it's not just the end of a performance. It feels like the end of an era. Because after 1971, and after Duane Allman's passing, nothing would ever sound quite this free again. Number 9. The Doors' Riders on the Storm.
Like a dog without a bone and an actor out alone, riders on the storm.
If the Allman Brothers set fire to the stage, the Doors brought the storm clouds. In June 1971, just weeks before Jim Morrison's death in Paris, the band released Riders on the Storm, the final track on their last album with him, LA Woman. From the moment the thunder rolls in and Ray Manzarek's Fender Rhodes floats like rainfall, you know this isn't just another rock song. It's a ghost story. Morrison's voice slithers between the instruments, half whispering, half haunting. He recorded a whispered vocal track over his own singing, giving the song its chilling, almost supernatural presence. He sings of strangers, danger on the road, and existential drifting. It's a song about movement, but the feeling is static, like driving through a downpour with no destination, headlights cutting through the mist. Musically, the band was at its most mature. Robbie Krieger's guitar lines are restrained, jazzy, almost minimalist, leaving space for the Rhodes to carry the melody like a steady rain. John Densmore's drumming is subtle and atmospheric, using cymbal washes instead of crashes. The result is hypnotic, a song that doesn't just play, it surrounds you. The timing of its release makes it even more haunting. Morrison recorded the vocals in Los Angeles, then left for Paris to escape the pressures of fame. He would die there less than a month later. Riders on the Storm wasn't meant to be a farewell, but it sounds like one. The whispered lines feel like they're coming from the other side. The song became the Doors' final hit with Morrison, climbing the charts while the news of his death spread across the world. Suddenly, lyrics like, "Into this house we're born, into this world we're thrown," felt prophetic, as if Morrison had written his own epitaph. Today, Riders on the Storm stands as one of rock's most atmospheric masterpieces, a blend of poetry, jazz, blues, and mystery that no band has ever fully replicated. It's the sound of a door closing literally on the Doors, and a legend slipping into myth. Number 8, Led Zeppelin, Stairway to Heaven. In 1971, no rock song cast a longer shadow than Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven. Released on their untitled 4th album, often referred to as Led Zeppelin 4, the song wasn't just another track. It was a statement. An 8-minute journey that moved from delicate folk ballad to thunderous hard rock, Stairway became the anthem of a generation, even though it was never released as a single. The song begins quietly, with Jimmy Page's finger-picked acoustic guitar weaving a melody that feels both ancient and otherworldly. John Paul Jones adds recorders, giving it a medieval air. Robert Plant's opening lines, "There's a lady who's sure all that glitters is gold," feel like the beginning of a myth. For the first few minutes, it's intimate and almost fragile, like the calm before a storm. Then, without warning, the song builds. Page layers guitars, John Bonham joins with measured intensity, and Plant's voice grows more urgent. By the time the electric guitar solo arrives, it's like the song has climbed the stairway. It promised a soaring, emotional peak that few rock songs have ever matched. Page recorded that famous solo in one take, improvising it on the spot. What he captured wasn't perfection, it was lightning in a bottle. Stairway to Heaven didn't chart at first, but radio DJs across the world began playing it in full, often at the end of their shifts. Fans demanded it at concerts, sometimes refusing to let the band leave the stage until they played it. It became so popular that Zeppelin eventually grew tired of it. Robert Plant once famously donated $10,000 to a public radio station just to stop them from playing Stairway to Heaven ever again. The song has also been surrounded by controversy. Accusations of plagiarism over the opening riff led to a years-long legal battle with the band Spirit, though Led Zeppelin ultimately prevailed. But even these controversies only added to the song's mythic aura. It became more than music. It became a cultural monument. Today, Stairway to Heaven remains one of the most iconic songs in rock history. It's been covered, mocked, banned in guitar shops, and worshipped in equal measure. In 1971, it was a turning point. A moment when rock proved it could be as grand, complex, and timeless as any classical symphony. Number 7, The Rolling Stones, Brown Sugar. By 1971, the Rolling Stones weren't just a band, they were a cultural force. After a turbulent end to the 60 Seconds, marked by the death of Brian Jones and the chaos at Altamont, the Stones kicked off the new decade with something fierce. Brown Sugar, the opening track to their Sticky Fingers album, hit like a shot of adrenaline. It was raw, swaggering, and unapologetically provocative, a perfect embodiment of the band's image. Written by Mick Jagger during the band's 1969 American tour and recorded at Muscle Shoals Sound Studio in Alabama, Brown Sugar blended gritty rock with touches of country and R&B. Keith Richards' instantly recognizable guitar riff slices through the mix, setting the tone. From the first second, the song struts with the kind of confidence only the Stones could deliver in their prime. Lyrically, Brown Sugar has always been controversial. It's packed with provocative references to race, sex, and power that reflect both the band's rebellious edge and the changing cultural landscape of the time. While the lyrics have been criticized in later years, they also reflect the band's willingness to push boundaries in ways few mainstream acts dared. When Sticky Fingers was released in April 1971, Brown Sugar became an instant hit. It shot to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and became one of the Stones' signature songs. The track also marked their first release under their own label, Rolling Stones Records, complete with the iconic tongue and lips logo that became one of the most famous symbols in music history. Musically, the song is a masterclass in controlled chaos. Charlie Watts' tight drumming, Bobby Keys' searing saxophone solo, and Jagger's slinky vocals combine to create a sound that's both loose and razor sharp. It's rock and roll at its most dangerous and exciting. Brown Sugar wasn't just a hit, it was a declaration. The Stones were entering the 1970s with a new level of creative freedom and attitude. In a year filled with timeless songs, this track stood out for its sheer audacity, capturing the decadent spirit of rock at its peak. Number 6, Jethro Tull, Aqua. In 1971, Jethro Tull released what would become their defining album, Aqualung. At a time when rock was expanding in every direction, this record struck a unique balance between heavy riffs, acoustic textures, and biting social commentary. The title track, Aqualung, stood at the center of it all, part character study, part cultural critique, and entirely unlike anything else in mainstream rock. The song opens with one of the most distinctive guitar riffs of the decade, a gritty, bluesy line that immediately sets the tone. Ian Anderson's raspy vocals then paint a vivid portrait of the titular character, a homeless man shivering on park benches, staring at little girls with bad intent. It's uncomfortable, unsettling, and intentionally so. Anderson wasn't romanticizing poverty, he was holding up a mirror to society's judgment and hypocrisy. Musically, Aqualung is a journey in itself. The track shifts between delicate acoustic passages and thunderous hard rock sections, reflecting the contrasts in its subject matter. Martin Barre's guitar solo is one of the song's highlights, slicing through the track with both precision and raw emotion. Meanwhile, Anderson's flute and acoustic guitar add layers that give the song its unmistakable Jethro Tull character. Lyrically, Aqualung pushed boundaries. Rock at the time often dealt with love, rebellion, or fantasy. Jethro Tull dove straight into uncomfortable realism. The song set the thematic stage for the rest of the album, which explored organized religion, morality, and society's treatment of the marginalized. Anderson would later say the record wasn't a concept album in the strict sense, but the themes were so strong that many listeners considered it one. Upon its release in March 1971, Aqualung received critical acclaim and became a commercial success, eventually going multi-platinum. It marked a turning point for Jethro Tull, transitioning them from an experimental blues rock band into one of the defining progressive rock acts of the decade. The song itself became a staple of their live shows, with Barre's blistering solo and Anderson's commanding presence leaving audiences stunned night after night. More than 50 years later, Aqualung still stands as a landmark in 1971 rock. It's gritty, theatrical, and unafraid to make listeners uncomfortable. In a year full of iconic tracks, Jethro Tull carved out their own space, not through anthems or love songs, but through storytelling that cuts. The inspiration for the song came from Gaye's brother Frankie, who had returned from Vietnam and shared stories of injustice, confusion, and suffering. Meanwhile, Marvin watched the civil rights movement and anti-war protests unfold across America. His response was a simple but powerful question: what's going on? This wasn't protest through aggression. It was protest through compassion, inviting listeners to reflect rather than react. Musically, What's Going On is unlike anything else Motown had released up to that point. Gaye layered his own vocals to create a lush, almost angelic choir effect, while the instrumental arrangement mixed jazz, soul, and classical influences. The smooth bass line, fluttering strings, and gentle percussion created a sonic landscape that felt both soothing and urgent, a mirror to the message itself. Initially, Motown head Berry Gordy hated the song, calling it too political and fearing it would alienate audiences. Gaye refused to back down, famously halting his recording career until the label agreed to release it. When it finally dropped in January 1971, the single became a sensation, topping the R&B chart and reaching number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. More importantly, it signaled a new era for Motown, one where artists could speak their minds. What's Going On didn't just mark a turning point for Marvin Gaye. It shifted the direction of soul and rock music altogether. It showed that commercial success and social consciousness didn't have to be at odds. This single opened the door for politically aware albums from artists across genres. Today, the song stands as one of the greatest ever recorded, a timeless plea for empathy and understanding. In a year overflowing with iconic music, What's Going On rose above as both a hit record and a historical moment, proving that art can change conversations and hearts at the same time. Number 4, John Lennon, Imagine.
Imagine all the people.
In 1971, just a year after officially leaving the Beatles, John Lennon released what would become the defining song of his solo career and one of the most iconic songs in modern music history. Imagine wasn't a loud anthem, it was a quiet revolution. Its message was simple, yet profoundly challenging. Imagine a world without divisions, without greed, without war. In a decade marked by upheaval and transformation, Lennon's vision struck a deep chord. Written at his home in Tittenhurst Park with significant lyrical inspiration from Yoko Ono's poetry book, Grapefruit, Imagine, was built around a hauntingly simple piano melody. Lennon delivers the lyrics with a calm sincerity that contrasts sharply with the radical nature of the ideas themselves. He wasn't preaching from a pulpit, he was inviting listeners to picture something better. The recording itself was intimate. Lennon's voice is front and center, accompanied by minimal instrumentation, piano, light drums, and soft strings. This stripped-down arrangement gave the song a timeless, almost hymn-like quality. It's one of those rare pieces where the simplicity of the music amplifies the power of the message. Upon its release in October 1971, Imagine became an instant global hit. It reached number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 and top charts around the world. Over time, it grew beyond the scope of pop music, becoming an anthem for peace movements, humanitarian causes, and cultural moments across generations. Few songs have managed to transcend their original context the way Imagine has. Of course, Lennon's idealism wasn't without its critics. Some dismissed the lyrics as naive, pointing out the contradictions between Lennon's wealth and the utopian vision he sang about. But the song's impact wasn't in perfection, it was in possibility. It gave people permission to dream collectively, even if the world remained flawed. More than 5 decades later, Imagine endures as a universal song of hope. Its melody is instantly recognizable, its lyrics quoted at vigils and celebrations alike. In 1971, it felt like a daring statement. Today, it feels eternal, a reminder of music's unique ability to inspire and unite. Number 3, David Bowie, Life on Mars.
In the dance hall, oh man, look at those cavemen.
In 1971, David Bowie released one of the most astonishing songs of his career, Life on Mars. Tucked within his album Hunky Dory, the track wasn't just another pop song. It was a surreal masterpiece that captured the strange beauty and alienation of the era. Bowie had already been experimenting with characters and concepts, but this song was something else entirely, both cinematic and deeply personal. Bowie wrote Life on Mars after working on an English adaptation of the French song Comme d'habitude, which would later become My Way for Frank Sinatra. His version was rejected, but Bowie kept the chord structure and crafted his own set of vivid cryptic lyrics around it. The result was a song that felt like a fractured film reel, snapshots of modern life, fame, media, and loneliness, all wrapped in his unmistakable flair. The music begins with Rick Wakeman's elegant piano playing, setting an almost classical tone. From there, the arrangement builds gradually, adding strings and soaring vocals that explode into one of the most breathtaking choruses of the decade. Bowie's performance is commanding yet vulnerable, his voice gliding through absurdist imagery like Mickey Mouse has grown up a cow with total conviction. Lyrically, the song is both strange and emotional. Bowie describes it as a sensitive young girl's reaction to the media, but its layers allow for endless interpretations. It's biting satire, existential reflection, and glam spectacle all at once, a perfect example of Bowie's genius for blending pop accessibility with avant-garde ideas. When Life on Mars was released as a single in 1973, it became a hit in the United Kingdom, and eventually one of his most beloved songs worldwide. Over the years, it's been covered by countless artists and featured in films, television, and even performed at Bowie's memorials. In a year packed with rock classics, Life on Mars stood apart. It wasn't loud like Zeppelin or rebellious like the Stones, it was otherworldly. Bowie created a song that sounded both timeless and futuristic, cementing his place as one of rock's most innovative visionaries. Number 2, The Who, Baba O'Riley. When The Who released Baba O'Riley in 1971, they weren't just putting out another rock single. They were unleashing a sonic revolution. Opening their Who's Next album, this track fused rock, minimalism, and raw energy into something that sounded like the future. With its swirling synthesizers and thunderous power chords, Baba O'Riley became an anthem that defined both the band's evolution and the spirit of a new decade. The song's iconic intro, was created using a Lowry Berkshire Deluxe TB-01 organ programmed by Pete Townshend to replicate the patterns of composer Terry Riley, one of the song's namesakes. The other half of the title came from Meher Baba, Townshend's spiritual mentor. This fusion of spirituality and technology was radical for 1971, signaling that rock was moving beyond traditional forms into bold, experimental territory. Lyrically, Baba O'Riley captured the disillusionment and youthful rebellion of the post-60 Seconds generation. Roger Daltrey's powerful delivery of lines like "Don't cry divided by," "Don't raise your eye divided by," "It's only teenage wasteland" struck a chord with listeners, navigating the turbulence of the early 70 seconds. The song wasn't just a party anthem, it was a rallying cry for a generation caught between fading idealism and a rapidly changing world. Musically, the song builds with precision. Keith Moon's explosive drumming anchors Townshend's crashing chords, while John Entwistle's bass provides a steady undercurrent of power. The combination of swirling synth patterns and Daltrey's vocals created a soundscape unlike anything else in rock at the time. The instrumental outro, with its ecstatic violin solo by Dave Arbus, gave the track a wild, almost celebratory finish that has become legendary in live performances. Baba O'Riley wasn't a massive commercial single initially, but its impact grew steadily. Over time, it became one of The Who's most beloved songs, a staple of classic rock radio, sports arenas, and pop culture. Its intro alone is instantly recognizable, signaling both innovation and intensity. More than 50 years later, Baba O'Riley remains a symbol of rock's ability to evolve. It showed that technology and emotion could coexist, that rebellion could be both intellectual and visceral. In the context of 1971, it sounded like nothing else, and in many ways, it still doesn't. Number 1, Pink Floyd, Echoes.
Across the sand, and everything is green and submarine.
Closing out 1971, no song captured the ambition and artistry of the era, quite like Pink Floyd's Echoes. Spanning more than 20 minutes on their album Metal, this epic composition signaled the band's evolution from psychedelic explorers into full-fledged architects of sound. It wasn't just a song, it was an experience, pulling listeners into vast sonic landscapes that felt both alien and profoundly human. The track began as a simple ping created by Richard Wright's piano, fed through a Leslie speaker. From that tiny sound, the band built an entire musical universe. David Gilmour's guitar lines are fluid and emotional. Nick Mason's drumming is subtle yet precise, and Roger Waters' bass anchors the song's long, hypnotic journey. The interplay between the musicians is seamless, showcasing a band fully in sync and unafraid to stretch beyond traditional structures. Lyrically, Echoes reflects on human connection and shared consciousness. Lines like "strangers passing in the street, divided by chance two separate glances meet," evoke both intimacy and cosmic scale. The song feels like an odyssey moving through calm waters, stormy crescendos, and eerie underwater passages that push the boundaries of what rock music could be in the early 70s. The middle section, often referred to as the whale call sequence, features experimental guitar sounds that created an entirely new atmosphere. Rather than relying on traditional solos, the band used texture, space, and dynamics to tell their story. It's a testament to their creativity that a piece this unconventional became so beloved. When Metal was released in October 1971, Echoes became its centerpiece. It wasn't released as a single, but it quickly became a fan favorite and a highlight of their live shows, foreshadowing the grand concepts they'd soon bring to albums like The Dark Side of the Moon. Echoes represents the peak of Pink Floyd's exploratory spirit. It's bold, immersive, and unlike anything else released that year. As the final entry in our countdown, it stands as proof that 1971 wasn't just about hits, it was about artists daring to create worlds within sound.